And we're back again. Jets Flight Path, April 2nd, 2021. I'm Brian. I've returned after a 2 week sabbatical. Uh, Along with me, as always, is Paul. And we're just going to get right into it. We have a lot to cover. We didn't go over extensively on Jets free agency, or free agency at all. So we'll just start at the top with the Jets and their first signing. The Jets need this year to make some moves, not sit on their hands like they did last year, where their biggest signing was really Brashard Perriman. So right out of the gate, addressing the linebacker position, which lost a lot of guys in free agency. Lost Jordan Jenkins to Houston. Neville Hewitt is not looking to be brought back. Toa Burgess, I believe, is a Cowboy now, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
I believe so.
and so that the linebacking core really consists of a question mark and C.J. Mosley. If healthy, you know what you'll get, but hasn't really played football in 2 years. And Blake Cashman, who's we'll see how he is, maybe more depth. So they went and signed Gerard Davis from Detroit, 1 year, $5.5 million contract, fully guaranteed. He's looking to start, and I really like this signing. I don't know because him and Mosley play the same position. The Jets now switching to a 4-3, so it'll be interesting to see where he lines up.
Yeah, as you said, the Jets did. They lost a lot of linebacker coverage uh, this past free agency, but through the draft and who they
Mhm.
just brought in, they should. It should be interesting to see how it works out. He's more of a coverage guy over the middle, as opposed to a lot of these guys that you could see that you saw the Jets trying to use as a pass rusher, such as Jordan Jenkins
Yeah.
and yeah, so I think it's a good move. Joe Douglas made a lot of low risk, medium to high reward esque signings. We'll get into that
Mhm.
as we cover more of signings. But 1 year, 6 million, not terrible,
No.
especially when you had 70 million to play with.
Right, and considering this is, a COVID cap year, the cap is going to increase next year. So if he balls out, he plays well, you bring him back for another 1 year deal. You do the same thing the Jets did for like the past 2, 3 years with Brian Poole, um,
Right.
which I could totally see. The second move the Jets made, the first true big splash move, as Jet fans were losing their mind on Twitter. What is Douglas doing? Everybody's signing left and right to every other team. We missed out on Joe Thuney. Oh, the world is ending. And the Jets addressed the receiver position, signing Corey Davis to a 3 year, $37.5 million deal. The Jets get their number one receiver. A receiver, I think, throughout the process of this offseason, neither you or me really looked at as like a guy pegged for the Jets. I think we both, so you liked Chris Godwin. Obviously, I liked Allen Robinson. When that wasn't going to happen, maybe thinking that the Jets pivot towards maybe Juju or maybe even Galladay or Curtis Samuel, who ended up signing with Washington. But they signed Corey Davis, who broke out the past 2 years after a slow start to his career. And you know what? He fits the mold. He's a bit different than Denzel Mims, who'll start opposite of him. The Jets looking likely to keep Crowder now in the slot. And the Jets, what was a weakness for many years, ever since the Jets had Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, seems to be a bit more of a strength on that offense, adding Corey Davis.
Well, and you look at the receiving core as it is right now. You add Davis to a low key underrated lineup with Denzel Mims as your number two and
Mm-hmm.
Crowder as your slot guy. Regardless of who the quarterback is next year, whether it is Zach Wilson or Sam Darnold, you're going to have a nice bunch of guys to throw to. Each guy in one, two, and three, different skill set, or they bring a different variety of receiving. I guess you want to call it to the Jets. Crowder's a short slot guy. Mims can run the routes really well, make spectacular catches, and Davis can go deep if you need him to. He can, go to the deep route, and
You can jump
it's
up
nice
and
that
get the. He can be like a Brandon
he
Marshall
can
type in that
right,
in the end zone too.
right, and it's nice to have variety uh, on your receiving core, so that way your first read is gone. Okay, well now we got Mims cutting over the middle, and now he's up the field. And so I like the signing. I think the Jets receiving core is going to be very solid next year. They also brought back, I believe, Barrios and I believe Vincent as
Vincent
well.
Smith, yeah.
Yep, they brought back Vincent Smith as well. So they have a decent receiving core. So I'm excited to see how that works out next year with whoever's quarterback.
Yeah, and we will get to that later in the show.
Uh,
But it's looking like whoever is a quarterback, like you said, is going to have a wide variety, a diverse bunch at the wide receiver position to utilize for weapons. But the next big splash and probably the biggest free agent move the Jets made this offseason is signing Carl Lawson, 3 years, $45 million, 30 mil guaranteed. The Jets finally have a pass rusher for the first time since 2006, a true pass rusher, John Abraham, not counting Aaron Maben. It's my favorite move so far. I think Carl Lawson is like an emerging pass rusher, similar to Shaq Barrett about 2 years ago, where he didn't have a 10 sack season yet, but he's getting there. And you put him on this line with this group of guys like Quinn Williams, I think Carl Lawson's easily going to get 10 sacks this year.
Absolutely, and it's kind of baffling why Cincinnati didn't, throw all the money at him as opposed
Mm,
to their pass rusher they signed, Trey Hendrickson, who they ended up getting from New Orleans. It's essentially the same deal, except Hendrickson got another year and another 15 million on that. So, 4 years, 60 million, as opposed to a 3-year deal that Lawson was looking at. Kind of a head scratcher there, but the Jets got a great pass rusher, and as you said, with the emergence of Quentin Williams as the interior pass rusher, really big run stuffer as well. It's going to be very, very difficult for opposing lines to contain both the outside rush and the inside rush. And don't forget, a lot of people on Twitter are completely negating the fact that the Jets still have Franklin as well, who,
yeah,
you know,
Franklin
he
Myers,
he
he's going to
yeah,
be opposite on that on the fourth
he's
three. He's going to be the other D end.
exactly, and he coming from L.A. last year, he looked really good, and
Hmm.
and this just might be these two pieces, Quentin Williams and Lawson. A lot of guys are going to double team these two, and here comes Franklin Myers off the other end, and don't be surprised to see him have a big year as well. That Jets defensive line is going to be stacked,
Yeah.
and they've never had a problem with their defensive line. That's always been historically a Jets strong suit.
Mhm.
And just to see that line back up to where it was, 5 years ago when they had Sheldon Richardson, Muhammad Wilkerson, and Snacks Harrison, one of
Mhm.
the most fearsome lines in the league at the time. It's going to strike fear into the heart of opposing quarterbacks, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, it is a tremendous signing for the Jets, one that is long overdue, and kind of crosses off a need heading into the draft because we know
Right,
this team has many needs. So not prioritizing pass rusher as much um, comparatively to say maybe linebacker, cornerback, especially heading into the draft,
right.
what was important. The next
Uh,
signing. The Jets made is signing Justin Hardy, Saints special teams cornerback, but doesn't really play cornerback. He's like a Matthew Slater type. He's a special team guru. He's a wizard, and signing him to a 3-year deal. The Jets gave out a lot of 1-year deals. I mentioned the COVID cap. He is here for a long haul, and you know the Jets making sure that the special teams unit is improved upon and helping out Brant Boyer, who they retain now, we mentioned previously, through 3 coaching regimes. It says a lot because Hardy, he's a tremendous player. He's well respected and liked by coaches and players down in New Orleans. I haven't known a whole lot about him, but then you just watch like some highlights off of YouTube, and it seems like Joe Douglas and company know what they're doing, and this guy's going to fit the culture really well.
Well, he wasn't called the best gunner in football for a reason. There's, as you said, there's multiple videos, highlight package videos out there of him just getting down the field and essentially just smothering the punt returner, pass catcher, whoever it is,
Right.
and just essentially just stopping them from really gaining any positive yardage.
Hmm.
He's 4 years in the league, and this is an interesting stat. 4 years in the league, he's only played 115 defensive snaps. However, he's played 1105 special team snaps. So again, he's more of a specialty position type player, such as your long snapper, where really all they do is just snap the ball. And it seems like
Right.
Justin Hardy is just he's a special
He's a
teams
gunner.
gunner, gets down the field and stop the ball from progressing, and that's going to be a really key ability or specialty that the Jets have. Again, going back to the defensive line that they have now with Franklin Myers, Lawson, and Quentin Williams. Quentin Williams, oh, my head's all over the place today. We have so much to talk about. And then with the return of C.J. Mosley and a few other guys that they got, that defense I think is going to be pretty fearsome. And to have an opposing offense pinned back at the 20-25 yard line,
Yeah.
it's going to put the Jets in a lot of favorable positions.
Well, they're trying to build it, in a similar sense to the 49ers, build up that defense or rebuild it up. And, with the offense, just kind of manage for now. But we'll see how they approach it offensively because a lot of people are pegging it to be similar, Michael LaFleur to be nearly identical to Kyle Shanahan, but he's his
Right.
own man. He's going to have his own wrinkles into his system, and Robert Saleh, I'm sure, will have his own input. But with that said, next, excuse me,
And
Jets.
and real quick, I
Yeah.
just want to I wanted to say this about the previous three signings we went about, and Justin Hardy as well. Did all these guys that the Jets signed are going into their second contract? These aren't
Yes.
guys who are 30 and 31 years old. These are
Signing Trumaine
26
Johnson
year
at like
old,
28 years old.
26, 27-year-old guys who are in the prime of their careers. They're getting them at prime contract years, 3 years, 4 year deals. So that way, when they turn 30, 31, and maybe they fall off a little bit, they're not handicapped with these albatross contracts. They're getting the most value for their money at the time, or with these signings at the moment. Young guys in their prime.
Right.
Hey, you got to overpay. You overpay a little bit, but hey, you're getting a guy at the top of his game as opposed to overpaying and getting a guy at the tail end of his
On the
prime
downside.
on his downside. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely that's something that's hasn't been seen in previous GMs from McCagnon to Enzik and even Tannenbaum. So it shows that Douglas, he has a group, he has his value on players, and if it's not met, then he's not going to go overboard to get a guy. I'm sure maybe some dollars were thrown here or there for say Lawson or Davis. Um, but like you said, second contract guys not on the back end of their career. But with that said, moving on to the offensive side of the ball, the Jets go receiver again in free agency, and pretty surprising. I didn't think they would go after him. Is Keelan Cole to be their wide receiver for, signing him to a 1 year, $5.5 million contract, another 1 year deal as with Gerard Davis. Um, Keelan Cole, this provides insurance. I mean, honestly, he could arguably be one of the best like wide receiver fours in the NFL. Compare like the Jets depth chart at receiver compared now to like during the season when they were throwing out Chris Hogan off the street and like guys who I never heard of before, like just spot starting. It was awful. But
Right.
signing, you
Right.
know, we're expecting a step up from Denzel Mims from his rookie year. He showed some flashes. Jameson Crowder, we know what we'll get from him. He's a consummate professional. He's a damn good slot receiver if he can stay healthy. Adding Corey Davis and Keelan Cole to that, I think it's just going to help again whoever is in at quarterback.
Yeah, and looking at the offensive woes that the Jaguars had last year, he still managed to put up a respectable 55
Mm-hmm.
catches,
With a carousel
642
quarterback.
yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. Very respectable year. And again, this is one of those low risk, high reward esque moves.
Yes.
And and I'm gonna go back to, well, this is really ensuring whoever is quarterback, whether it be Darnold or Wilson or whoever, coming out of the gate to the season has the weapons that they need to be able to succeed. Now, if it's Wilson, that's a great step in the right direction. He's going to have a potent offense, and if it's Darnold, it's really okay. No more excuses. You have a team that's starting to be assembled around you. Go out there and show us why you deserve your second contract. But getting a little ahead of myself, I agree with you. Keelan Cole is a great insurance option in case you do see Crowder go down for a game, or you have a Corey Davis who's out. He'll be the next man up, and he's got experience playing as a number two or a higher end receiver, which will greatly help the Jets.
No doubt about that. And we flip back over to the defense and the Jets' attack at free agency this year. A lot of people, like I said, complaining that they didn't make the big splashes. We'll get into that once we, wrap up here with the covering the Jets' free agent signings. But going after specifically the defensive line again, as you said previously, making it a strength in the days, as you mentioned, with Wilkerson and Richardson, or even before that when they had Puha and Chris Jenkins and DeVito and
Right,
guys like
right.
that. It's always been a strength of the Jet team that they're very good against the run, but the problem has been getting to the quarterback. And they
Right.
signed Lawson, they signed a pass rushing specialist. He's up there now. He's 33 years old. Vinny Curry, former Philadelphia Eagle now, 1 year, $1.3 million contract. For a situational pass rusher, a veteran presence in that locker room. Because I feel every year you need to bring in like that veteran guy, like a Steve, like Vinny Curry could fit the role of a Steve McClendon type. As we know, the Jets traded McClendon to Tampa Bay, did right by him, and he ended up winning a Super Bowl. But you got to replace that presence, that respectable, you know, old leadership that you need in that locker room. And signing a guy who's going to be in there and specific packages for a small contract like that, I think is fantastic. And then they also follow that up by signing Sheldon Rankins, who I did not expect the Jets to sign at all. Another defensive tackle, 2 years, 17 million. Jet fans were losing their mind, which just it's so stupid because you want to add to your strength, and now the Jets have a defensive line that consists of Quentin Williams, Sheldon Rankins, Carl Lawson, Vinny Curry, uh, Jonathan Franklin Myers, Futukasi, Nathan Shepard, Jabari Zuniga, who was hurt all last year. We'll see if how he does this year. Kyle Phillips. Uh, they this defensive line is stacked, and arguably with these signings, could be one of the best in the game.
No, and I'm glad you brought up Vinny Curry. So as I said before, the Jets bringing in a lot of younger guys, 26, 27-year-old guys. This is a deal where, as you just said, Brian, it brings veteran leadership to the locker room. It gives these guys like Williams and Franklin Myers a mentor. You know, show them like a Larry Fitzgerald type thing. He's been around the game for a while. He's seen different situations, and he'll show these guys how to attack it. But let's not discredit Vinny Curry as a whole last year. Now, he was used mainly as a situational pass rusher, mainly on third downs, and he still managed to get off a respectable
Mm-hmm.
4 sacks last year. So again, this is going to be a situational type deal with Vinny Curry, where on third and long, and they're rushing everybody. Yeah, throw him in there next to Lawson and Myers, and rush four, and just pin them back. And
Oh yeah.
I'm really excited about this move because again, it shows that Joe Douglas is not playing around. He understands what the needs are, and he's going to attack. And people wanted to lambast him even last year. Well, he didn't sign anybody. Yeah, well, what do you expect? He still had a whole bunch of McCagnon hangovers, and
Mm-hmm.
he had to gut this team, and now he's building it to the way that he did in Philadelphia. Build up the defensive line, build up the offensive line, and then once you have um, those two positional, I guess, positional categories nailed down, then you
Mhm.
build the rest of your team around them,
You
and
build
that's how you.
inside out. You build within
Right,
the
exactly.
trenches, and then you spread outward. And
Right.
Douglas has been adamant about this since day one. He's not wavered on that. A former offensive lineman himself, he scouted that. He knows offensive linemen, and he realizes the importance of defensive linemen. And having that and seeing, of course, with our new coach Robert Saleh, the Niners have one of the best defensive lines under his watch. So this is it's surprising because I didn't think the Jets would go that heavy with defensive line, but I'd much rather the Jets sign D tackles, all the D tackles, I don't care, in free agency than draft them, in the first round every single year. That
Yeah.
that's a better route to go. But just like even looking at this stat, like going back to Carl Lawson, last year, the sixth most total pressures in the NFL, 64 total. He also had 32 total quarterback hits in 2020, the second most in the NFL, and recorded 5.5 sacks. Now, put that player, who on Cincinnati's defensive line wasn't all that great. I mean, he was a true standout, and add him to this Jets defensive unit. I mean, uh, we're talking about a Pro Bowler here. And it might be not
Potential
only
all pro.
potentially, and Quentin Williams might join him, and who knows who else? Maybe we'll get a true breakout year from Franklin Myers. This unit, with what Joe Douglas and company have done in free agency, approaching the defensive line specifically, it should have Jet fans everywhere just excited for what's to come.
Right,
Um,
I agree.
with that said, the Jets also signed a guy who I think me and you kind of predicted like back in January, and you mentioned last week's show, that the Jets, a great fit if they bring in Robert Saleh, we bring in Tevin Coleman, and they did just exactly that. A 1 year deal, once again, a contract worth up to $2 million. The issue with Coleman is injuries, but if he can stay healthy, he is a perfect fit and a perfect veteran presence too in that running back room, joining Michael Pirine, Ty Johnson, and Josh Adams, and whoever else maybe they'll add through the draft. There's been rumors that the Jets may be looking at guys day three running backs, which perfect. Do not please the Jets, Lord God Almighty, do not let them draft a running back in the first 2 rounds at all. Um, but adding Tevin Coleman, like I think again another low risk, high reward move. If it doesn't work out, hey, it doesn't work out. It's like only at $2 million. It's a 1 year deal, and the
Yeah,
Jets
you
have
get
other
that back
guys
at the
there.
end of the year.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
but
well,
I think it's a good move.
well, and as I stated in last week's episode, we a lot of these Twitter beat writers and Twitter fans and ourselves included, we all said, yeah, Tevin Coleman's not coming here, or we're going to get him, and the Jets just shut us up by doing one completely different thing. So the instance of
Yeah.
Tevin Coleman coming over again, I didn't expect it to happen, but 1 year. And it's actually a 1 year, $1 million deal with the incentives in the contract to gain another million. So really, it's essentially a vet's minimum at this point.
Yeah.
And if he hits all those check mark boxes, he goes up to 2 million. So, and the nice thing is, if he has a little garbage season, okay, see ya. We get $2 million back next year on the cap. So the nice thing is, a lot of these deals, while a lot of them are guaranteed, they're easy outs a year or 2 years in. So the Jets, if they need to make a big splash and they're competing,
Hmm.
okay, 2 years they can go out and get guys, and
They'll have
that'll
they'll
put them
have
over the
plenty
top.
of cap, in
Yeah.
years future. This is not, a real concern.
Right.
But like I said, a solid move. The one move, this next one we'll discuss, I'm not a big fan of because of the money. Is signing former LA Charger offensive lineman Dan Feeney. He's an offensive guard, 1 year, $3.5 million deal. I believe it's all guaranteed. Uh, it looks to me like they might have bring him in to possibly start, which is just dreadful. I think the biggest shock this offseason, not that the Jets lost Joe Thuney, to the Chiefs. They weren't getting him, and that's the case. And the money, considering you're going to back-to-back AFC champions, one of the best, arguably the best team in football for that type of money. I think the biggest issue this offseason is the lack of um, addressing of the offensive line as a whole. This is the only offensive lineman so far that the Jets have made a move on. They apparently didn't even look into Corey Linsley, which is shocking to me, considering McGovern's up and down year at center. But they must have confidence in McGovern to keep him at center. Obviously, Fant and Becton are at the corners. Uh, the biggest questions are, Alex Lewis and Van Rotten. So Feeney, I guess, is being brought in to compete with one of them. The Jets, we also know they have Cameron Clark from last year, who is most likely going to compete, but I don't like it for the money. But a solid backup.
I mean, again, it's only a 1 year deal.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, we get it back at the end of the year. And it hurt. And I think I talked about this a few episodes ago. The salary cap is just a fiction of our imagination.
Yeah,
It's just
we
like
get into this now, Paul, because I would I would love to hear your thoughts because I disagree. But go ahead.
that the salary cap is make believe.
Yes,
All right, Tatum Hill just signs a 4 year, $140 million deal. All years are voidable,
Jason
which
Tatum
means,
Hill.
okay, I can kick it down. And the Saints can just kick the cap down the field. And the
They
same
still got
thing
to
with the
pay.
Chiefs.
They got
Right,
to pay down the line.
right. But
It's
in
just
the
delaying
short,
the inevitable.
but in the short term, it's they can sign whoever the fuck they want. Same thing with the Chiefs. So
Yeah, but look at the
it's
Eagles. The
really
Eagles are fucked right now,
no, because you look at
and the
4 years
Saints
down the
pretty much are
no,
too. The Saints
no,
lost a
no,
lot.
no.
They made that move because they were so over the top with the cap. They lost a lot of guys. You mentioned before Hendrickson. Uh, they lost a few lot like Quan Alexander, I believe. They didn't bring back. They're hurting it down in New Orleans. They're hurting in Philadelphia.
With
Kansas
with
City can do that right now because like guys are restructuring. It's what the Patriots done forever for the past 20 years when Brady was there.
with the COVID cap the way it is, of course, you got to do what you got to do. But 3 years down the line, the NFL just signed another TV deal worth $11 million or 11 billion, excuse me, with Amazon, which gets a section of Thursday night games. Again, they re-upped with ESPN and CBS and Fox. So right now the cap is sitting at what, like 180?
Yeah.
5 years down the road, 4 years down the road, it could be sitting at 230, 235 million, maybe even 240. At
Oof.
that point, it's fucking okay. We got the cap. We're good. It's fucking insane, and it
If
really puts
but Paul, if the
smaller
cap
teams
wasn't like
at a
it's a soft,
disadvantage.
I mean, it's not small teams. This isn't baseball where you have broke ass owners who like own the Pirates and they haven't done crap for 30 years, and they simply can't compete because the owners don't have the pockets, and that's MLB is different because there's no cap whatsoever. The NFL it's like a soft cap, so. Yeah, you're saying that, I don't think it'll increase within 4 or 5 years from like 180 to 230 or 240 million cap, but these teams are going to have to pay the piper at some point. If this was the case where the cap's a myth, blah blah blah, then how come not every team does it? And it's not a situation like I said, MLB. Like these owners have the money, they will spend as we saw. Like bad teams spend. Dan Snyder with Washington for the past 20 years, Woody Johnson and Chris Johnson with the Jets for the past 20 years. They've spent. They're just not good. So to me, it's just about like okay, guys just want to go to teams that are winners right now. It's kind of a little bit like that NBA mentality, like super team, like we see with the Tampa Bay Bucks. For the first time, I think since the um, who was it? I could be wrong on this. I think the Niners, the '94 Niners, um, won the Super Bowl. A '90s team, maybe it was the Packers back then, who won in like '96. But bringing back the starting 11 on both the defense and offense is exactly the same. You have Leonard Fournette signing for a bit cheap. They gave Gronk that, quote unquote 4 year deal, but the last 3 years avoidable, so he's only getting paid 4.5 mil this year. They bring back, they signed Godwin to, I believe, the franchise. They tagged Godwin, um, and like I said, brought back Shaq Barrett. So it's just managing right now. Like, where are the Tampa Bay Bucks going to be in 5 years? I mean, let's say, okay, if Tom Brady is no longer playing football in 5 years. That's a big if right now, but it, like they're going to be bottom of the barrel. The Chiefs won't because the Chiefs still have and will continue to have Pat Mahomes, so they'll still compete and manage here and there. But like I said, look at the Eagles right now. Why aren't they, saying, "Oh, well, the cap doesn't exist. We'll spend," because they can't because they're screwed. I think it's just a matter of
Well,
like a team has to get good to begin with, and then you can play around with the cap. Because look at the Patriots. I think it's also just you know being financially smart. The Patriots had a bunch of guys miss this past year with COVID, more than any other team, and it didn't spend much, and they spent the most in free agency. I think ever. I believe they broke the record. The New England Patriots signed literally everyone this offseason. And a bunch of guys, let's see, they acquired Trent Brown, re signed Cam. I have here just, this was from March 16th. So they signed Matt Judon, signed Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. They really want to bring back that Hernandez Gronk two tight end from the early 2010s. Signed Nelson Aguilar, signed Kendrick Bourne, um, signed Jalen Mills, signed former Jet Henry Anderson. They bring back Donta Hightower. Uh, how are the Patriots getting this money? And it's just being able to work the cap. But the Patriots, like I have the stat here actually, well, I guess stat, guaranteed over $137.5 million, placing them second in NFL history for most guaranteed money in a free agent signing period. Um, the other team would be the 2020 Miami Dolphins, who missed the playoffs. So, and I saw the one stat too of like since 2016, the Jets and Jaguars have spent the most money in free agency, quote unquote, winning free agency, and they have the worst record. So, the Patriots, they're doing a lot of different things unlike them. We'll see how it works out for them. But in terms of this whole cap is a myth, I, I don't see it. I get it's frustrating to see because if the Jets were doing this, we wouldn't be really complaining. But
no, and I get that, but my whole thing is it's like you said with the NBA, where Brooklyn Nets are just fucking going out and just
and the
all
Lakers
right. Blake
too.
Griffin got bought out. Well, yeah, yeah, and it's just don't get me wrong. I'm a Brooklyn fan, but it's just
Despicable.
you what was that? What was that?
How dare you?
Yeah, I know, but you have to have some level of parity in the league, and
But
it's
but there
essentially
there will
all
be.
all but been called for a Laker Nets matchup. And going back to the well, I don't hate Kansas City. I don't despise them.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just like, all right, you just cut you're already 30 million in the hole. You cut your two tackles left and right, and then you go out and sign Joe Thuney to a 5-year, $80 million deal that you can kick down the road. Like it's fucking unreal, dude.
It's just until the competition committee proposes a rule on allowing teams to restructure contracts, because that's the thing too. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to take this player who's making an enormous amount of money counting towards the salary cap, and we're going to convert that to a signing bonus. So unless they change that, and I don't know how well that would or wouldn't go over with the NFL player union, until that gets changed, nothing's going to happen. And it's something where it's a
And
caveat for teams, for elite teams to stay elite, basically.
I will say this: the NHL and the MLB, although two different
Two
cap
different sports. One
situations.
is hockey,
NHL's
one is baseball.
right. Yeah. NHL has a hard cap. The MLB doesn't have a cap. They do a very good job at ensuring league parity because NHL the hard cap is once you hit the cap, that's it. You're fucked. MLB, while there's no salary cap, there is a luxury tax, and they have
Yes.
rules in place that you have to have an X amount of years of MLB service before you can hit free agency, and you have more time to develop players in the minors. And I mean, look at the Rays.
Well,
Perfect example. Nobody is going to that shithole market. They can't fill their stadium. But the Rays since 2007 have consistently been one of the best teams in the MLB. Why? Because, all right, we can't afford, I'm just throwing names out there, a Mark Teixeira. I'm going back a little bit. Or we
Hmm.
can't afford a Mike Trout. But you know what we can do? We can draft. And we have all these prospects down here in the minors, and they're very good at developing them, and they're able to turn these prospects into, key players such as Meadows and
Yeah.
Blake
And
Snell, and they ended up getting Chris Archer. Like the Rays are the golden boy for how to run an organization. I just think throughout sports, they're not money hungry. They don't have much
you
support
don't
from their
like big
their
money
their
spenders, and yet you're a Yankees fan. Interesting.
because and I'm going to be completely honest with you. We're going to delve away from football for 2 seconds. I think the Yankees are fool's gold this year. They really are. Yeah, we signed Kluber. We got Cole for back for another year to run it back. German just came back. That's great. What happens when you go up against Tampa in the playoffs again? The White Sox are just retool their entire fucking team through their minor league system. Boston looks a little bit better. Of course, the Houston Astros are always a threat. Like the Yankees are the regular season champs every year, year in and year out. And then when they get to the postseason, it's long ball or bust. They can't hit around the diamond. They can't steal bases. They can't fucking play small ball. They can't
Hmm.
play situational ball. And it's just like, well, what happened? We 103 games in the regular season, bro. What the fuck happened? Yeah, you got smoked because here's Houston knocking the ball around the park. Okay, you just got Altuve and George Springer on base, and now here comes your fucking powerhouse hitter. And again, I'm just throwing names out here. Yuri Gurriel. Okay, 3-run homer. Now you're in the hole. Here comes in order, Luke Voigt, Judge, and Sanchez, three power hitters. You really think they're going to be getting on base with singles and doubles? No, they're fly ball guys, or they're fucking home run guys, and that's why the Yankees always, year in and year out, fucking disappoint the fans. I my rant there. Back to football.
And that was Paul's Yankees hot stove minute. As we're now back, welcome back to Jets Flight Path. And but I understand your frustration, Paul. But like I said, I think the cap is the way it is. I think it would be interesting if the NFL had no cap like the MLB, because unlike the MLB, every NFL owner has dough. They have tons of money to just throw around. Um, Now the problem with that is you could end up like more so of an NBA situation where you have just super teams. Right now, it's really just the Chiefs and the Bucks. Teams are taking a bit of a pay cut to go there, but I don't think it's as bad as everyone makes it. It's just like it hasn't happened to the Jets. Once the Jets start winning and start playing well, start becoming contenders, hopefully by next year become a true contender. Um, then once this happens with the Jets, where they have to finagle the cap and everything, it'll be all good. But just wrapping up on Jets free agency, so we can move on here. Lamarcus Joyner, the Jets, another kind of surprise move, being that they franchise tag Marcus May and they have Ashton Davis. They bring in Joyner, 1 year, $4.5 million deal. Uh, Guy who I'm guessing would have him play free safety. Similar, Robert Saleh may employ a similar center field type safety guy where designated like, all right, he's just going to be back, and that could possibly be for say like Marcus May, and then have Davis play up a bit more towards the box and have Joyner roam around there. I like this move, and judging by the money they gave him, he's definitely going to play.
Yeah, as you said, more of a center field esque type, deep ball esque type safety. One of the best in the league in that retrospect. And he's really an insurance policy for a struggling secondary. You
Hmm.
have really one veteran back there in Marcus May, who should be getting paid and really shouldn't have had to sign that free franchise tag, but that's another story for another debate. You still got Bryce Hall as cornerback, who's shown some really promising stuff as a fifth rounder. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't bring back Brian Poole yet. I believe
He's still
Sherman
out there.
Richards. I'm sorry.
I'm saying he's still out there, so he
Yeah,
could be a
he's still out
possibility.
there, and he can be a cheap again 1 year deal. It's, Richard Sherman Richards is still out there. So I mean, there's definitely cornerback talent out there, but I think going into the draft, Douglas is going to prioritize obviously quarterback. Receiver, I think he's going to back off on a little bit,
Hmm.
and you're going to see a lot of inside linemen such as Wyatt Davis. I do think the Jets will take him with the second round pick, and you're gonna see, I think, 23rd overall, you're gonna see the Jets take a cornerback there, or trade back, gain some draft capital, and maybe take an Asante Samuel Jr. or
Ooh.
someone with the
Well,
27th, 28th
I
pick.
saw things about that the Jets want to actually trade up, trade that 23 and Darnold plus to get you know into like the top 15. We'll see how
I
that goes, but
I think that's a move. That's a move if the Jets are looking for another receiver. I think Jamar
they could
Chase.
get linebacker. Um,
I, I don't know if Kyle Pitts would still be there at 8.
oh, I
That's a move if they're going for like a Kyle Pitts. I think offensive wise, they're gonna run it back with um blanking on his name. I'm sorry,
for what position? Tight
Chris
end.
Herndon.
Turn and they
No,
just signed
yeah,
Tyler Croft too. That's the last free agent so far
right,
that the Jets have signed.
right. I think they're gonna run it back with those two. I can't see the Jets really making that big of a splash to move up to get Kyle Pitts. I don't think 23 and Darnold will be enough to move up to 8.
Well, I don't think 8, but I
And
think they could get in the top 15. They could if they like a
I
guy
mean, they
and he's there and they're concerned maybe the next few picks like I could see them to me it's absolutely ridiculous, and we'll just get into it now, transition covering free agency for the rest of the NFL. We'll talk more about in depth next week, but just covering the main guys who were signed. The Chicago Bears signing Andy Dalton and naming him the quarterback one, it's just absurd. It's really criminal what the Bears have done, wasting yet another great defense. And it's a scenario where I believe the Bears, the Jets picked 23. I think the Bears picked 20, um, somewhere around there, a few picks ahead of the Jets. Where I could see the
yeah,
Jets and Bears just
no.
swapping first round picks, and the Jets being like, "All right, we'll trade you Darnold in 23, and we'll move up, and we want to take this guy." I think that at this moment is the most likely scenario because we all know, and there's maybe like four people left who are in complete denial. The Sam sexuals who think Sam Darnold's the greatest thing since sliced bread. We got to keep him because he made one beautiful throw in against the 49ers when we were down 30, getting smacked up and playing against backups, and threw it to Barrios across. Literally every quarterback except Jared Goff makes that throw. People were gassing up
Eli
Wilson with
Manning.
that throw at the pro day, and I'm going on my rant. Is that it was like a 60-yard bomb, and people were upset with Fields like not getting as much of the blah blah blah. But I think at this moment, they're saying like waiting on the physicals till like April 14th, I believe, for all these potential draftees. And once that goes down, so between April 14th and the draft at like what is it, the 29th, um, that's when Darnold will get traded. Sam Darnold will not be a New York Jet by April 30th, day 2 of the NFL draft. I can guarantee that. And I think the most likely destination we saw, Washington signing Fitzpatrick, like that move. A lot of teams, might be out on quarterback right now, so it's only looking like Carolina, Denver. Even though the Bears signed Dalton, I think bringing in Sam Darnold, trading for him makes too much sense.
Well, the McCaskies are notoriously stupid when it comes to free agent signings and building a team. Really, that 2006 season was an absolute fluke. We had Rex Grossman.
Well, not the
Good.
defense.
Oh,
That defense was
okay, the
Brian
defense is
Urlacher
great,
plus. Yeah.
but regardless, you had Rex Grossman take you to the Super Bowl.
Oh
That's incredible. Um, Chicago, I'm going to be of the other opinion. I don't think Chicago will trade for Darnold. I don't think they'll swap picks with the Jets because,
you
hey, they
think
already
there's
committed to Andy Dalton,
you
and
think they're really sticking with Dalton and Foles?
I do,
Oh
I
my
do.
goodness, that's so sad.
I, I think, I think the Bears think their defense is good enough to the point where they can compete and get back into the playoffs. And you know what? Andy Dalton, massive improvement over Mitch Trubisky. So really, it's not a bad move upgrading from quarterback from Mitch Trubisky to Andy Dalton,
It's
but it's
not
a
a good
terrible
look.
move for your long term future. Andy Dalton's what 34 years old. He's
Holy,
coming off as a backup in Dallas where he suffered a few injuries. Really, how much more effective can he be? And
yeah.
you're in a division with the Lions, who are going to get better. They have Jared Goff. They have a lot of younger guys. The Vikings, who so yeah, you have a good 1-2 punch with Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook in Minnesota, and you would think that Kirk Cousins would improve from last year's campaign, being that he had a down 2020, and this is a contract year for him, where he would want to continue to be a quarterback in the NFL. I can see him having a bounce back season. And of course, you have the Packers who are running it back with Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones just signed that extension. So
Yeah.
it's a really interesting move for the Bears. It's a bold strategy. Again, I I don't see anything wrong with signing Andy Dalton as a backup. I think him taking over as Mitch Trubinsky, taking over for Mitch Trubinsky as a starter. Again, you can't do much worse than Mitch Trubinsky. But to come out and say he's the number one quarterback, I don't know if that's a good move. And I don't think the Jets or Chicago would make a deal with the Jets to get Darnold, especially that if Darnold's going to have to come in and compete with Dalton. And let's say Darnold doesn't get the job. Well, okay, you just wasted another year of his rookie deal. And now, if you want to see what Darnold's all about, you have to take that option, which is going to cost them, what, like 18 million, 17 million
Yeah, I
in
doubt
the
that would
fifth year?
happen. It's
That's
got
what I'm saying. So,
at this point. I think Darnold is going to go. I saw one rumor to Denver for a second round pick. I don't think anything higher. I think the dream scenario would be at the moment would be packaging Darnold to move up in the first round. But I think the Jets have to settle for a second or third round pick at this point.
well, and there's even the possibility that the Jets don't trade him at all because really, as backup quarterback, who did they sign? They didn't sign anybody.
Well, it's
So,
James Morgan, our
it,
fourth round pick last year.
yeah. So if they go that route where they keep Darnold, do they have a competition in camp? And okay,
Well, there's plenty of
it's a
guys. I
Teddy
could see
Bridge.
them bringing in like a Nick Mullins, somebody like that. Maybe even Alex
Could
Smith.
could it be a Teddy Bridgewater s situation where they brought him in and they let him show his stuff off in training camp and how he's improved, and they just ship him off? It could very well be. I don't know, but I just think that the Darnold market is shrinking and shrinking, and I think the Jets end up holding on to him. I do. I don't think
I,
that
I
he's
don't see
enough
how
to
that's
move up to
beneficial
eight.
to your rookie quarterback, and even to Darnold. Like that's such an awkward situation.
It's right. But it inspires competition, and you know what? Is it the worst thing in the world if the Jets rookie quarterback sits for a year while he learns the system, while he learns the playbook, while he learns how to get adjusted to NFL lifestyle?
But then you
Because the
lose
problem,
Darnold for nothing because they're not signing him back. They're not, picking up
okay,
his
then that's
option.
fine. And listen, if he plays well, then you get rid of him then at the trading deadline, or you get rid of him in the next offseason. If
I'd
he has a
rather just
great
roll with
year,
James Morgan. If
uh,
that's the route, I'd rather just say, all right, because James Morgan is going to be here in 2022. Sam
right,
Darnold will not, no matter what.
right. But
Because
you
we
know, at
know
the
the
same
Jets are
time,
taking a quarterback at two. There's not this is known, regardless if it's Fields, if it's Wilson. if God forbid it's Mac Jones, Jets will be taking a quarterback at 2. Sam Darnold is not in this regime's future. I don't. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. Like you can sign a guy dirt cheap, a quarterback. Go bring Josh McCown out of retirement again. Sign him for vet minimum 500,000. Who cares? Like I don't care that much about backup. I want
Well,
something in
you
value of
sh-
return for Darnold.
you should care about backup because, as you see in this league, a quality backup can make or break your season.
Uh,
And you look at
but
Miami. You no,
this
go ahead.
season, come on, is this like for the Chiefs? Sure. If your team, like if you're an elite team, you should have a quality backup. A lot of them don't. Like the Seahawks backing up Russell Wilson is Geno Smith. If Russ goes down, what really is going to end up happening? There's not a whole lot of like, in terms of good backups. Like you could say like, I guess Nick Foles with Chicago right now is a good backup. I mean, it's hard to say, but I'd rather just not have any. Oh, I gotta worry about the incumbent, whoever's the rookie quarterback the Jets take. Worry about comparing myself to him and everything like that. And it it's better to just between, like I said, I guarantee it. April 14th through April 29th, between that time period, Sam Darnold will no longer be a New York Jet. It does.
I'm of the other opinion. I think they hold on to him because at this point,
Then
the
why'd
market.
they draft James Morgan? What's the point?
You need a third round. You need a third stringer. I don't know. I mean,
Waste
he
of a pick
wasn't
then.
active at all this season. Really, again, could it be that he's just he's got to get acclimated? We don't know. Could it be that he's that bad? We don't know because he hasn't been active. But at this point, the Jets, the Darnold market went from okay, maybe a first to okay, maybe a second to now a third or even a fourth round pick.
I'll take it.
Hey, listen, okay, I'd
Eh,
rather have the quality backup. Hey, at least Darnold has played in the pros. He's still a young guy. He
You
knows the
don't think, in
system.
terms of compare, but you can bring in Sam Darnold doesn't know the system. Sam Darnold doesn't know
He
any
knows
system.
how to. He's acclimated to NFL level,
So
as opposed to just
you'd rather
let's
just
hear it.
keep Darnold for a year, not get nothing for him, and have that situation with the rookie quarterback in that quarterback room instead of just signing Nick Mullins for like 1 year, 4 or 5 million, and also getting a third or fourth round pick at worst for Darnold.
I just think he'd be a quality backup at this point. Again, he has NFL experience.
Nick
He's
Mullins
young,
isn't.
and mm,
He knows the
I
system
mean,
very well.
mm, okay, but if let's say the Jets are competing next year, let's say they're right on the playoff hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather take Nick Mullins over Darnold?
What do you mean?
That's just
They're
me. I
competing in
think, and
2021 or
you look at
2022?
the I think I mean depending on how this draft goes, I think the moves they made in free agency are great moves. If this if this draft can
They're going to be wild
Douglas
card
can hit on a few
contenders.
picks, I don't see, I don't see why the Jets can't be a seventh seed. So if they're
Yes.
in the hunt and they're 6-5, let's say Darnold or let's say Zach Wilson's a quarterback, he goes down for a few games. Would you rather have Nick Mullins or Sam Darnold behind the line to push you through those few games until Wilson gets back?
Nick Mullins.
Well, we differ on that opinion.
Because I mean,
I'm taking
honestly,
I'm taking I'm t-
what is Darnold shown other than flashes? And yet he's still, even in the games he's played really well in. The Washington game comes to mind. The game against Dallas that I went to comes to mind. He still makes bad throw. Like he'll throw a inexcusable interception at the worst
right,
possible time.
but let's talk about his positives. He's able to move around the pocket. He's able to take a garbage play that should be a loss of
And
yards and turn
extended,
it
yeah.
into a 3, 4, maybe even a 5 yard gain. He can scramble. He can rush. And he knows a few of the players that'll be on the offense already. He's had experience with Denzel Mims and Crowder, so it's not like it's the end of the world that the Jets don't get rid of him. Hey, if he plays well in the preseason, and a quarterback goes down, There you go. Okay, we'll give you Darnold for a third. I'd rather go into the preseason with the idea that, okay, we have these two quarterbacks. One's a rookie, one's still trying to prove it. And, we go from there. Whatever happens, happens. If Darnold beats out Wilson, great. Perfect. You let Wilson learn behind Darnold. You mend the past. The past is the past. It is what it is. It's a sunken cost at this point. And if he plays well, then you can get rid of him for a second. If he doesn't beat out Zach Wilson and he's a bench guy, I don't mind that either because he's a relatively cheap backup, and the Jets don't have to pick up that option. It is what it is,
Right, but
and by
they're
that
going to need a
and by
backup again next year.
and by that, okay, that's fine. Then you deal with it next year, and then by that point, he's valueless anyway. He's really valueless now. The only reason why he's still in the talking circles is because Carolina needs a quarterback, Denver needs a quarterback. I still think Washington's going to need a quarterback. They're playing with 38-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick. I could see them coming out of left field and grabbing him. So that's really the only reason why he's still there. Other than that, Darnold, the Jets are stuck with Darnold. They should have struck when the iron was hot a few months back.
Well, no, that's definitely true. I think they could have, in the very least, gotten a potentially just straight up a late first. Say maybe they packaged Darnold in like a
A-
fourth and got maybe the Bears first or Washington's first back in
And
when the off
that
season opened
was
up.
just sorry to cut you off. That was the biggest mistake I think that Douglas and Saleh could have done. They tipped their hand when teams were inquiring about Darnold. They said they wanted to wait until after the pro days. With reports coming out, and this is trend. I guess we're going to segue into our next segment.
Hmm.
With reports coming out from Steve Young and a few other guys that say Wilson is a Jet, the Jets have locked in on him. If they knew this going into before the pro day, if they had some idea, then they should have picked up the phone and said, "All right, what are you giving us for Darnold? Because now he's what do you do with him? You might as well
Yeah.
hold on to him as a backup."
Well, I still say ship them off, but like it's some people are comparing it, and I even initially thought like, oh, like Rosen on draft day, the Jets, draft for example Wilson at 2 overall, and then later end up trading Darnold for a second. They can't get that because Darnold has more tape than Rosen. Rosen had 1 year in one of the worst teams in league history, and the Dolphins were like, all right, we'll take a shot on Rosen, and traded a second for him because Arizona was done for him after just one season. Darnold, you've had 3 years of subpar play. Granted, part of one of the worst organizations in football that attempted, quote unquote, build around a quarterback with the worst possible coaching hire and, you know, a terrible offensive line and questionable weapons around him. But still, no team on draft day is going to give him more than, say, a fourth, and that's even a lot. The Jets, right now, even though, like I mentioned previously before a few times, that they're looking for to package Darnold and the 23rd overall and move up, I don't think it's going to work. I think it's just better now to cut ties. The Jaguars already basically, I was having that hope of Trevor Lawrence being a Jet. I had the dream, and the dream is dead. Urban Meyer basically crushing my dream, shattering it, and saying, yeah, we're headed towards drafting Trevor Lawrence. So Lawrence is off the board. He's a Jacksonville Jaguar, number 1 overall. The Jets are on the clock. We know the Jets will be taking a quarterback at 2 overall. They're not taking Sewell. They're not taking Pitts. They're not taking Jamar Chase or Devonta Smith or trading back. A new regime, a general manager, a new head coach, they will pick their own quarterback. They have no ties to Sam Darnold. If they keep him, they keep him. Where would we're the percentage podcast, Paul. So where would you put the percentage on Sam Darnold being a Jet on the 53-man roster right now? Currently stated,
I,
April 2nd, 2021.
and you're gonna go nuts, but I think 45%.
Wow.
I think again they haven't signed a backup.
But they
They
haven't
still
signed a
have Sam
cornerback
Darnold.
either. Their
They
cornerbacks are
they
Bryce Hall and Bless Austin. That will not be the
as
same.
as of right now, their quarterback number one is Sam Darnold. Their quarterback number two is James Morgan.
I'm buying a James Morgan jersey.
Again, James Morgan hasn't been active all season. We haven't really heard much out of him in the season. Or oh yeah, he took some snaps with the second team. He's just been there.
It's Hackenberg 2.0.
But I mean, he was a fourth round pick. Hackenberg was a second. I just think that the Jets shot themselves in the foot, and the Darnold window is closed. Especially with all these
Uh,
teams in free agency going after quarterbacks like Washington and Chicago.
but see, here's the thing.
What are you going to do with them?
We all thought, like, what are they going to do with Jamal Adams? He's out there on social media making a clown of himself, a clown of the
Yeah, but
organization,
that's a
and
completely
Joe
different.
Douglas ended up getting 2 first plus for this
But
malcontent diva safety.
but that that's a completely different story though, because
Uh,
Jamal Adams, while I agree with you, it's all love. He's a bitch. He was a great run stopper, and he can get to the quarterback as a safety. Terrible in coverage, but he had some value there, and Joe Douglas was able to swindle a deal.
yeah, got
Sam
more value
Darnold,
than what he actually is worth, even at that
Sam
time.
Darnold, Sam Darnold has had 3 seasons. He's had 3 seasons with injuries. The tape is there, and I just,
I,
I
I
don't see,
agree, but
I
I
just don't
think I would put
see.
the trust in Douglas. I think Joe Douglas has earned that, especially after last year's draft of hitting on Mims and Becton and Mann and Hall and Pirine. Like I think, and especially at his approach to free agency, hiring Robert Saleh, making the number one hire, and how he's approached things, I'm willing to give the Jets the benefit of the doubt and just let it play out. Currently, if you're asking me percentage wise where the Jets are, if Sam Darnold's on the 53-man roster, I'd give it 10%. 10% chance.
All right. I mean, I don't see the market for Darnold. And hey, if they get rid of him, God bless. I hope
Denver
Sam
could
Darnold
use
has the
him.
best. I
Carolina
I
could use
I, I
him.
hope I hope he has a great NFL career. And it's really sad. I don't hate Darnold. I think he was given a bad shake here. He had a fucking general manager who just, all right, we're gonna throw you behind the worst offensive line in the league, and we're gonna give you no receivers. Have fun, kid.
Yep.
And then he gets a brand new coach who does absolutely nothing to develop his game. He's got an offensive coordinator slash quarterback coach in Daryl Loggins, who was
Dowell.
essentially Gase's water boy.
Yeah.
What?
Dowell Loggins, not
Yeah.
Daryl.
Yeah, whatever. That's how unimportant he is. He was so fucking useless at that. You never saw him on screen. You never heard of him. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna try this. Like you never heard of him. And he was just fucking. He was put in a position to fail at the start, and I will never. Again. We talked about this a few weeks ago. I'll never say a bad word about Darnold.
hmm
It didn't work out here. But he was a consummate professional. He gave it his all on the field. I just wish things had really played out different, because I still think he can be a great quarterback. He needs to be developed. He's only 23 years old, and I know a lot of guys on Twitter saying, "Well, this would be the biggest statistical outlier in NFL history if he were to change his career around." Great. I hope it is. The kid's only 23 years old.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield was what, 23 when he came out of college?
Yeah.
What the fuck? He's still young enough to be able to learn from his
Yeah.
mistakes.
I don't
I
think
think a
Darnold is
fresh.
shell shocked in the sense that David Carr was in Houston for all those years. I think the difference
Right.
is Darnold is hopefully for all parties involved gets the chance to move on to new scenery, to greener pastures, and be developed under a more competent organization
I, I
currently
would
in
I
his
would love
career.
I would love to see Sam Darnold end up in Pittsburgh. Why? Because
Hmm.
as cocky and as arrogant as Pittsburgh is, they have a solid history the past 25 years of having a well funded, a well oiled team that can help their quarterback succeed. I would love to see him there. There's never a problem at receiver. There's never a problem at offensive line, and there's never a problem at running back. There you go. Just develop the kid and see what he can do.
I think that would be.
Sam Darnold for life, man.
I should say, Paul is a samusexual. But I think
I'm
honestly,
just I just I'm just a member of the Darnold on Reddit. Fucking great subreddit.
are
You
the
ever see that subreddit?
no, I am not.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's beautiful.
Um, I'll take your word for it, but I think that's a very interesting because we've mentioned Carolina, Denver, mentioned Washington, Chicago, but Pittsburgh. This, we said it for the past 2, 3 years, but this might just be Big Ben's final year playing football. And the Steelers don't really have a whole lot of options. If they're going for it once again, uh, this year, they're going to be picking in like the mid first round next year. I don't know how the quarterback class is looking in 2022.
Oh, it's
Not
horrendous.
not as good as this year, definitely at the top. So if Pittsburgh, in the very minimum, say they get bounced, they make the playoffs, get bounced right away, they're going to be picking in the teens. So I think it makes the most sense for them to trade, maybe a third and a fifth to the Jets, and there you go. Sam Darnold to Pittsburgh. I think that would be, let him develop under Big Ben if they like what they see from him. As the backup, and possibly depending on how well the Steelers perform, as that division is, very winnable, and Darnold may get some, playing time. And they like what they say, they pick up his option and they run it back again with Darnold and see how he does in 2022. I think
Oh,
that you mentioned the Steelers. I think that makes the most logical sense.
yeah. I mean, it's just, excuse me. It's a team that fucking they know how to
They know how
develop
to
talent.
develop. Yes.
Yeah, and statistically speaking, Darnold is 8,000 yards in his career. He's got 45 touchdowns, 39 interceptions. It's not this fucking the end of the world that they made it out to be. Just but because it's the Jets, oh, he's terrible. Like I'm real quick. He's got 1,200 passing attempts. He's completed 730 of them for just under 60%. So he's 59.8%. He's got 8,000 yards passing in his career, 45 touchdowns, 39 interceptions, with a passer rating of 78.6. Okay, that can be improved upon, but it's not like this is Jamarcus Russell territory where the guy
No.
doesn't fucking care. The guy doesn't put in the work. He wants to get better.
Darnold's
He's
going to be in the
always
league regardless in any
right.
capacity for the next 10 years at
I,
least.
and it's sad, but
Yeah.
I wish nothing but the best for Donald. I don't know who's going to take him at this moment.
I
I really don't.
we'll see, but I think the Jets will move on. You feel differently. You think it'll be best for the Jets to hold on to him, get that pick maybe later on. But moving on, we'll save because we're running a bit on time here, and there's so much to discuss over the past 2 weeks, and more Watson news came out today. But we'll save the Watson news for another day, and that's a very interesting topic. But let's just wrap up the show because we'll cover next week's episode. We'll go more in depth on the other big free agency moves around the league for other teams. We'll discuss more in depth Wilson's pro day you did, but also Justin Fields has had his pro day, and next week and look at what else is going on in the top of the draft. Probably the week after that, we'll do maybe a whole like mock draft and maybe have a few guests
Yeah, we
on,
could
or
do
we'll
another one
see.
of those.
But just to wrap up for this week, and like I mentioned, with the Watson news, that's a whole thing. We'll talk about that as more develops. Apparently, the Houston PD, as of today, are now looking into the allegations. So we'll talk about Deshaun Watson news next week. He will not be a Jet. That's at 0%. That's negative 100% now.
Oh,
Um,
good.
but just wrapping up this episode, it is now official that the NFL has expanded the season to 17 games. Still only one bye week, but in my opinion, it just opens up for the eventual, maybe 2 years down the line, 18 game season with two bye weeks and taking away two preseason games, which I think would benefit everyone and it would be great.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited because I was going back a few college buddies, and we can get together for this one as well. I got a feeling that they're gonna flake more than you will. I mean, you're what are you like 25 minutes from the stadium?
Yeah, about
Yep.
more like 30, 35 traffic.
Okay. All right. So I am excited that they play the Eagles this year at home,
Yes, and so yes, a home
especially
game.
especially with the proclamation by Roger Goodell saying he expects all stadiums to be at full capacity this year. Well, by the time that happens, it's going to be the end of December, beginning of January. You would think that, we're getting politics aside here. Most of the country would be vaccinated at this point. Those who aren't have herd immunity. So you would expect that a lot of people would be able to go to these games.
Mhm.
I want to see the Jets finally, for the first time in franchise history,
They're 0
beat the
11.
Philadelphia Eagles. 0-11 against the Eagles, the only team they've never beaten in the regular season,
It's
and
mind-boggling.
they have an opportunity to do it. Although if I'm being honest, I would have loved to see a Jets Giants game again this year.
Mhm.
And we've talked about this in the past, not on this show, but I'm kind of glad that they've kept they've gone with the 17 game regular season. But I think that 17th game should just be for the divisions. So you have the
Yeah.
AFC East versus the NFC East for the 17th game. You have the AFC North versus the NFC like,
Mhm.
and then in years where you actually play that team, then you can switch it up. But um, I think it's just a great moneymaker for the teams, because you look at New York, you have the Jets and the Giants, which are always high key great matchups. Philadelphia versus New England will be a great matchup when that eventually happens as a 17th game. And then, looking around the league, you have Tampa versus Miami, or Tampa versus Indianapolis. Like there's a lot of really good matchups that only
Yeah.
happen once every 4 years. That could potentially happen more than that now,
It seems
and
to
that's
be
just
like that outlier, I guess, interconference game, and it seems like they just made it up on the spot. Like, oh, there's 17 games, so like the schedule makers were like, sure, we'll just throw darts and be like, oh, okay, Jets Eagles, sure, why not?
right.
Um, but it's definitely, you can't be mad with more football. Less preseason is good. Eventuality of an 18th game and having two preseason games, which is honestly, you need preseason. These players do need it, but there's no reason for four preseason games, and for the backups and everything, it's primarily for them. Honestly, one, maybe 2 quarters is all the starters for all 32 teams need throughout preseason in total. So having that, I think, especially for this year, though, that 17th game, it just extends the NFL season. So the big thing is that not next year, but for 2022, um, the Super Bowl lines up perfectly with President's Day, which most people have off that Monday after. And that's what I think the NFL really is looking for that entire weekend to be like a holiday weekend unofficially. Um,
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Can you imagine that?
yeah, it
That'd be
would
phenomenal.
work out for everyone. Works out for the teams, works out for the players. Everyone makes more money.
The
Everyone's happy.
fans.
The fans too get more, get more real football. Um, and but yeah, it can't wait. And I would actually be really interested in going to that game if all is well by the time December comes around. Um,
Yeah, and based on what we've heard throughout the media, everyone's getting vaccinated. Everybody's getting opened up to being vaccinated. I know by me, with my job, the nice thing is that they have struck a partnership with one of the hospitals up here. Is St. Luke's national, or is it like a regional hospital, or do you have a
might be
St. Luke's by you?
regional.
Okay, so anyway, so my job has a partnership with St. Luke's that we can go get the vaccine, and I opened up the web page, and there were tons of appointments. So
Oh.
maybe in the near future, again, leaving politics out of this, I don't know yet, but we'll see. Yeah, I'd love to be able to get back into MetLife and pay $17 for a hot dog and watch the Jets break my heart once more.
So you gotta go. You gotta know where to go, Paul. Because I found this one place last time I went. Actually, was it the second to last time? Um, no, I think it was the last time I went was Jets Browns. If that wasn't the same year as the Cowboys. Um, Wait, did they have? Oh yeah, no. Last year was COVID. So okay, yeah, 2 years ago, the last game I went to pre-COVID, pre-everything was Jets Cowboys. But before that, I went to Jets Browns Monday Night Football. Trevor Simeon starting and lasting
Wow.
all about two drives before getting murdered by Miles Garrett.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and Absolute horrible game and terrible traffic. Paid $40 and had to walk 2 miles for parking. But I saved on the food. There was this spot that that had like I got like a hot dog and a beer for like 14 bucks, which is still insane. But comparatively
It's
speaking,
not bad though.
total,
Yeah.
not bad considering.
I would love to get the tailgating experience for
Mm.
real this time because you know what? Let's throw another shot at him, shall we? When we went with our good friend Nick Kasuchi to the Carolina Panthers game 4 years ago, he first off he forgot the parking pass, so he had to pay $40 to park 2 miles away from the stadium. And mind you, it's about 25 minutes before kickoff. So we have to walk, we have to get our tickets to go into the stadium, we have to find our seats. He parks his truck and he opens up the back of his truck, starts pulling the shit out. He goes, "All right, fellas, let's eat." Let's eat. What do you mean, let's eat? Bro, we got a 15-mile walk. We got to go to the stadium. And we're all
Oof.
standing there like shoving food in our faces, and there he is, slow sipping his Corona. Ah, this is a nice day with the fellas. Yeah, bro, let's hurry this up. We got a fucking football game to watch. And
uh,
and
well,
so
tailgating, I mean, is definitely, when done right and when done early, is a great experience. So that's something that.
yeah, I'm sure it is, but you know when you have to eat, when you have to shove a hoagie, a Wawa sandwich down your throat, and the fucking donuts that I bought down your throat, and then run 15 miles to the fucking stadium, and then you sit down and there's 9 minutes left in the first quarter. Yeah, it's a problem there. But anyway, I'm sure we're going to hear about this later. Like, fam, you guys just weren't ready that day. Yeah, yeah, okay. Anyway, so if you have anything else you want to say, Brian, say
Nope.
now or forever hold your peace until next week.
I think, like I said, next week we'll talk about other free agent signings around the league. We'll talk about the Watson news. We'll go in depth about what the Jets will do at two overall. Will it be Wilson? Will it be Fields? And, who knows? We may have a guest or two next week. Same thing goes for the following week as we get closer and closer to the 2021 NFL draft. And, sooner than later, we will have our complete mock drafts for the Jets. And yeah, Paul, if you want to send us out.
Yeah, so again, thank you as always for listening. I am Brian. I'm not
You are
Brian.
not.
I am Paul for Brian. Follow us on Twitter. Yes, an L. Follow us on Twitter at Jets
uh,
Flight Path, where again we will be posting opinions, responses to Twitter pundits, and anything else that may come up throughout the week. So thanks again for listening. We will be back next Friday. And for all my Christian friends out there, happy Easter. Hope it's a good one.